Nestled discreetly within the ancient heart of Rome lies a realm veiled in secrecy and cloaked in enigma, the Vatican. This minuscule city-state, no more extensive than a whisper, defies conventional borders and inhabits a world of its own, hidden amidst the bustling streets of the Italian capital. Even though known as the holy pilgrimage of Christians, this city has been hiding something from all of us. Why such obscurity? Are they doing it unintentionally, or there is more on the plate? To know about it, stay till the very end of this video. 1. Missing books of the Bible. In the year 1684, the Vatican removed 14 books from the Bible. To this day, there is no explanation as to why, and the Vatican is happier with the general population not knowing. There were originally 80 books in the Bible when it was translated from Latin to English back in 1611. These days, there are only 66. The missing books are known as the Apocrypha, which in Greek means hidden. The missing books include Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, the Songs of the Three Holy Children, Bel and the Dragon, Maccabees, and the Prayer for Manasses. Even stranger is that Jesus' name was spelled Jesus before these 14 books were removed. The church changed the pronunciation and spelling. If they had never changed anything, you'd pronounce Jesus' name as Yahushua. Why were these mysterious books removed? There are many theories. Some say the contents of the books didn't fit in with the Roman Catholic Church's narrative, and so they were simply taken out. Some believe they made the Bible too long and too confusing, so they were removed. 2. Aliens. Alien influences. Russian professor Genrikh Ludwig allegedly gained access to the secret Vatican archives in the 1920s and came upon some extremely disturbing information. Before I keep going, keep in mind that this has never been 100% confirmed. The story has been circulating for nearly a century, but we don't actually have the evidence that Ludwig was inside the secret archives. The story goes that Ludwig was allowed into the archives, where he discovered over 53 miles, 85 kilometers, of shelving and 35,000 volumes of catalogs. There were documents from over 12 centuries of European history. While he was browsing through the seemingly endless corridors of ancient texts, he started finding things that didn't make sense. There were papers that discussed how aliens had influenced all the most ancient civilizations of the world, from the Egyptians to the Mayans. The professor was never able to leave the Vatican with these documents, so conveniently for his story, no one except him has ever actually seen them. 3. The Antichrist. In 2010, Reverend Gabriel Amorth was 85 years old. He was also the chief exorcist in the Vatican with a history of treating over 70,000 cases of demonic possession. He had a small office on the 3rd floor of Vatican City, where he operated as a very real exorcist for 25 years. In an interview with the Italian newspaper La Repubblica, the Reverend defended his work and freely admitted that he believes the devil is a pure and invincible spirit of evil. The very fact that the Vatican has sanctioned over 70,000 exorcisms is pretty shocking. But perhaps even more shocking is that when the Reverend discussed an attack by the devil in 1981, Gabriel Amorth claimed the devil infiltrated the Vatican and tried to directly attack John Paul II. And then in 2008, the devil got back into the Vatican again and possessed a Swiss-Italian woman named Susanna Maiolo. On Christmas Eve, she attempted to push down Pope Benedict XVI but was foiled by the Pontifical Swiss Guard. She went back the next year on Christmas Eve during midnight mass and knocked the Pope over. It's very likely that Susanna was just suffering from some kind of mental illness, but according to the Reverend, she was a servant of the devil. 4. The 3 Secrets of Fatima. The Vatican may look like a simple religious organization from the outside, but they are a lot more mystical than people realize. They have their prophecies and their secrets, most of which they would prefer outsiders to not know about. The biggest prophecy of all was delivered on May 13, 1917. 3 young Portuguese shepherds were visited by an apparition of the Virgin Mary. They were visited 6 times between May and October. Throughout these visits, the Virgin Mary gave the children 3 prophetic secrets. Lucia Santos became the speaker for the 3 shepherd girls. In 1941, she finally revealed to the Vatican 2 of the secret prophecies. In 1943, the Bishop of Leiria asked her to reveal the third secret. Initially, she refused, but later that year, the bishop had enough and ordered that Lucia write it down. She did, but sealed it in an envelope with directions not to open it until the year 1960. The first secret was revealed by Lucia in her memoir to be a vision of hell. The second secret had to do with World War I and World War II. She predicted World War I would end, but that another war would quickly follow should men continue to offend God. The third secret is hugely controversial. She gave a vivid description of the persecution of Christians in the 20th and 21st century, along with a vision of the apocalypse. 5. UFO over Vatican City. In 2007, a mysterious orange disc was spotted hovering over the Vatican. Witnesses saw what can only be described as a silver-orange glowing saucer in broad daylight hovering over the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. It was photographed, many different people saw it, and then all mention of it was gone. But that doesn't change the fact that it happened. It could be that the Vatican has indeed known about extraterrestrials for centuries. But again, there was something strange in the sky that day, but nobody has any possible way of knowing. So, if it truly did come from outer space, do you really think the Vatican is in contact with extraterrestrial beings? 6. The Last Gospel. There is allegedly written evidence that Jesus Christ married Mary Magdalene and had babies. The evidence comes in the form of a manuscript from the 6th century when it was translated from Greek to the ancient language of Syriac. The manuscript allegedly tells the story of Jesus Christ as an adult, which is never discussed in the Bible. The manuscript tells a story of Jesus Christ as a sexual person who fell in love with Mary Magdalene and had some babies. This is obviously controversial for a whole lot of reasons. And so this obviously wouldn't have sat right with the Vatican, who wanted to whitewash Jesus and turn Christians into prudes. 7. Profiting from hypocrisy. The Vatican prospers frequently from things they don't believe in. They have a long history of wealth, massive assets and financial power and influence despite being a religious entity. As an example, the Vatican invested millions of euros in getting the film Rocketman produced. This seems like a conflict of interest considering Rocketman was a film about Elton John finding happiness in his marriage to his husband David, a relationship extremely frowned upon by the church. But even though that's what the movie was about, the Vatican had no problem investing roughly $1 million in getting it made so that they could get a piece of the pie. Now the question is, how do they get so much money? The Secretariat of State is always investing money. They invested tens of millions in the Centurion Global Fund. This fund then went on to back several films in Hollywood. Those investments kicked back money to the Vatican. 8. Dead Man's Trail. In the year 897, Pope Stephen VI went through a lot of trouble to put a dead man on trial. It was one of the most bizarre things the Vatican ever did. The remains of the former pope were put on trial by his successor. Pope Formosus had already been dead for a few months and had no real way of defending himself or his honor. Nonetheless, he was disinterred, put in robes, and then stuck on the papal throne to be handed justice. A deacon was even appointed to speak on behalf of the corpse. Pope Stephen VI even accused the former pope in front of an audience and hurled words at him like he was a living person. The dead pope was, at the end of the farcical trial, found guilty of usurping the papacy. Stephen VI then had all his acts, while officially the pope labeled null and void. As a punishment, 3 of his fingers were cut off, and his body was cast into the river. Shortly after, Pope Stephen VI was thrown in prison and then strangled to death. They were normally complete lunatics. It was more political than religious, and most of them died young. 9. Secret Archives. There is no place on this planet more secret than the Vatican secret archives. Everything in the archives is so secretive that the Vatican only allows entry to the most trusted scholars over the age of 75. This is undoubtedly so that even if the scholars wanted to spill the beans, they'd come down with dementia before they ever could. And while some say they are alien bodies in the archives and wild things like time machines, none of that is probably true. The truth is that the archives are full of correspondence relating to the Pope. They also hold treasures from the Catholic Church. And because this is the Catholic Church we're dealing with, they obviously don't want everyone gawking at their treasures. Even if they appear to open the archives to anyone interested, it'll probably be a half-truth. 10. Highest crime rate. There's one thing about Vatican City that they don't advertise to the tourists. They have one of the highest crime rates in the entire world. Statistics show that in Vatican City, 1 to 1.5 crimes are committed each year per person. Well, if we compare their size and population, then the rate seems high, but there are just about 1,000 inhabitants, mostly nuns and priests. But it's not them committing the crimes. The real criminals are the wandering tourists that visit every year. That's all for today. What do you think is the Vatican's biggest secret? Tell us your thoughts regarding this video. Subscribe and press the bell icon. Thanks for watching.